Hello everyone, today I am here to do a Q&A. So a while ago I asked you guys to ask me some questions and you guys did not disappoint. I think I have like 70 questions, which is a lot, and I don't think I'll be able to answer all of them, but I'm gonna do my best. Did I organize the questions at all? No, I did not. So this is gonna be totally a free base. I'm just gonna read them from Instagram and Twitter and just answer them as I go. So I'm sorry this is not gonna be formatted as a lot of other amazing Q&As are from other channels. I'm sorry, but I mean, here we go. I'm answering your questions. Instagram, I have a lot, so I'm just gonna read some of them. I will say one of the top ones I got was, will I be filming a bookshelf tour? And yes, I will. I did not film one last year. I'm so sorry. Bookshelf tours take a lot. I'm sure you hear that all the time. For me, it's mostly the time. Like, I can have a video slot where I can film a few videos in an hour and stuff like that while my kid is doing something, etc., etc. But bookshelf tours take hours, and I need hours of uninterrupted yelling and things like that from my kids. So having that block of time does not happen a lot in my life, so I have to really schedule it, and I'm planning to schedule it very, very soon. So hopefully, fingers crossed, a bookshelf tour will be coming very soon. Here's to hoping. How do you make time to read since you said your house is chaotic? I got a lot of those questions of how I make time to read, how I have time to work, things like that. So what I'm gonna break it down for you is a very, hopefully not too long answer of how I do things. And my number one answer is scheduling. It doesn't hurt that I'm a type A person, type 1 Enneagram, whatever you want to call it. I don't know my other things, I'm sorry, but I'm a very organized and meticulous person, so I think that helps me out in a lot of cases when it comes to scheduling. So scheduling helps me out. So I try to wake up a few hours before my son wakes up. I know you're like, oh my gosh, it's early. I'm an early riser. I can get a lot of things done even before 9 a.m. and that's just how I am. So I wake up a couple hours before my son wakes up, and that is my time where I work. I either edit videos, I'm editing photos, I'm replying back to emails, I'm replying back to comments. That is my main block of time, which I work every single day that's uninterrupted. So that's a big thing. Another thing I do is I schedule to film twice a week on 2 days, and I try to film like 2 to 3 videos every time. So I honestly try to film at least 4 to 6 videos a week. I know you're like, ugh, but that just helps me out. And what also helps me out is I schedule my videos like a month in advance. So I'm already looking into next month and what videos I want to do and brainstorming and coming up with them, because I just like having things already pre-uploaded and pre-scheduled, because that just makes things easier for me. So that's how working wise is what I do. Reading wise, I get a lot of questions on how I read so much with a kid, and I don't know, but I read mostly after he goes to bed. So I try to stay up at least 30 minutes to an hour after he goes to sleep, and that's my dedicated reading time. And sometimes I do good at that. Sometimes I read 5 minutes and I'm like, I need to go to bed. Either way, I try to read every single night. I also read sometimes sporadically through the day. In case he's playing by himself and doesn't want me to play with him, I'll read a few pages. When he's in therapies, I will read. Things like that. When my husband watches him or takes him like out on a shopping trip, I use that time to read. So I just fit reading wherever I can, and that's just what I do. So hopefully that answers the question of how I work and how I read fitting into my schedule. Things are going to change a lot when he goes to school, so who knows after that. Maybe I'll do a video all about that. But right now, that's what works for me. Does it work all the time? No. Sometimes my son is up freakishly early and I get nothing done. Sometimes he's up freakishly late and I get nothing done. But that's life sometimes. I try to go with the curveballs of it. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but hopefully that answers that. Who are your auto-buy authors? Taylor Jenkins Reid, Sophie Kinsella, Sarah J. Maas. Who else will I buy anything from? Kristen Hanna's one of them, probably. V.E. Schwab. And I want to say that's probably like it, I think. As of right now, those are like my auto-buy authors. I don't know. I would love to know what book you wish every single person would read. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which is right, I can point right here. It's a historical fiction book, and I know you're like, ugh, but trust me, I wish every single person would read that book. How do you decide on what books to read next or what books to put on your TBR for the month? That is a great question. honestly, my TBRs are generally fueled by, month to month, new releases. So I have a list of all the new releases that I'm interested in that I have on my computer, and I also have in my planner, and I try to work those in every single month. I also try to pull in books that are on my TBR shelf that are kind of backlist books. In fact, this year I just started doing this TBR jar system, which I'm really liking. So that's how I do it. Mostly I'd say my TBRs are fueled by new releases of the month. Question is, how old are you? I am 30 years old. I know, I'm old. What made you start my channel? Finding people to talk about reading about. I don't have a lot of friends that read in my personal life. Like, I'd say my best friends, one of them somewhat reads, but the other two have no desire to read at all, so I don't have anybody to talk to about reading. So that is why I started my channel. That is for sure. How quickly do you read books? Do you read a few each week? It depends on the book. If it's like a 700-page book, that's going to take me like a week, maybe 2 weeks to read because I'm just kind of a slow reader. And it also depends on the genre too. Give me a week of contemporaries, I could probably read 4 or 5. I just fly through those like nothing else. But that's just me. Like, somebody that's a fantasy-based reader could read 4 really heavily fantasy books in 1 week. But if it's like fantasy books, I could probably maybe only read 2 a week, 1 a week. I'm just kind of a slow reader when it comes to fantasy. So I would say I average around 2, maybe 3 if it's a really, really good week. But I say I average mostly around 2 a week. What is your ideal reading day, inside or outside? It depends on the weather. If it's super nice, like a fall day, outside. If it's like a cold winter day, inside. Rain or sun. I love reading when it rains. Like, I think everyone does. It's just so relaxing. Music or snacks? Music, I'm one of those rare people that I could probably listen to anything while reading. I mean, my son has these playlists, whether it's like kids playlist or right now he's really into Led Zeppelin at the moment. That's a whole other conversation in itself. My son has very vast music tastes. Like, right now he's into Led Zeppelin and like really 90s bare naked ladies music, but he also has like a whole playlist of just like kids music. Like, I'm so sick of hearing that song, Who Took the Cookie? Oh my gosh. But I hear that stuff all the time that I can read during that. So I mean, honestly, if I could, I would read in silence. That would be freaking golden to me at this point, but that's my life. The best thing to do or tips for starting a booktube channel. I think I have several videos all about that, for having tips with booktube channels on how to start one. My advice for you is just to go for it. I'd say you do not need a fancy camera. Let me tell you right now, like, if you get the newest iPhone, that thing's got amazing quality to it. I'd say lighting is key. Lighting is everything to me when watching a video. Like, if you have good lighting and good sound, I'm there. So I think with that is finding good lighting, and you don't have to buy lighting. If you look at a video right now thinking, she got professional lightings, no, it's the door open with the sun. You just got to work with it. Sometimes the sun's a real jerk though and does bad things. So just find a place where you can have good sunlight, kind of block sun away. The sun's not here, it's right there, so it's kind of illuminating my background and things like that. That is key. Also a mic. Mics aren't super expensive. I use a Rhodes mic that's like handed down to me from a friend. Thank you, friend. But they're not expensive, and I think they're really good quality. So for me, lighting and sound are the main proponents of a really good video. You don't have to have a fancy bookshelf. You don't have to have a fancy background. Just be yourself and have good lighting. She says, today's a good lighting day. It would have been really bad if I said that on a bad lighting day. Do you want to write a book, or would you just rather read them? I get this question a lot about, do I want to write? Because I know a lot of booktubers now are writing books, which I think is amazing. Do I want that? No, I would be a horrible writer. I have zero desires to write a book. If I ever see myself writing a book one day, it would be of a book that's like nonfiction about like my experiences in my life and things like that. I don't have any desires to write a book. I'm not good at it, honestly. I'd rather just read them, to answer your question. How did you and your husband meet? We met at church a long time ago. When did I first start reading? My first memories of reading, for some reason when I think of reading, I think of this really vivid memory of picking up this book called Friendle right here from the Scholastic Book Fair in my elementary school. And that's just like one of my first reading memories. Another really strong reading memory for me is reading Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine, and also starting to read the Harry Potter books. And those were all kind of around the age of 10 to 12. So I guess that's when I started reading. My favorite animal is a polar bear. Like, I just love polar bears. My favorite book villain of all time, Bellatrix Lestrange. Freaking obsessed with her. Do I think Noah will be as big of a reader as me? I don't know. He goes through phases. Sometimes there will be weeks where he just wants to read all of his books, and he's got a lot of them. And right now he's in a phase where he's not really loving books, but I think he does love reading. He memorizes a lot of what the book says and things like that. So I'm hoping he loves reading. I mean, he's growing up in a house full of books, so he can't say that he's not. Somebody asked my favorite non-reading hobby. I don't have a lot of hobbies other than like my two professions, which are reading books and taking photos. I made both of those hobbies kind of a career, so that's amazing. Other than that, I don't have much hobbies. I don't have time for hobbies. I mean, cooking maybe. I also like watching shows and movies, but I don't get a chance to a lot of that, so sorry, my life's boring. How does my rating system work? Do I read a book that is rated 3 stars and below? So my rating system works is 1 star, I barely use 1 star. I think 1 star would be if I DNF'd a book. I think I might start implementing that this year. 2 stars means I did not like the book in the slightest. I finished it, but I didn't like it. I don't use 2 stars too much. 3 stars is a very commonly rating system that I use. 3 stars means it was kind of an average, okay book for me. I enjoyed it, but I didn't get a ton out of it, nor did I hate it. So that's why 3 stars is kind of the middle of the road. 4 stars means I really, really enjoyed it. There were a couple of quirks I had with it, but I mostly really liked it. 5 stars means I'm obsessed with the book, basically. So that's kind of how my rating system works. I'm trying to be stricter. I guess my Goodreads rating average has gone down. I want to say it's like a 3.79 right now. I don't know. That's kind of low compared to other people, but I like it because it shows, like, I don't know. I think I just use 3 stars a lot, honestly. I also got some questions about my son's diagnosis. My son was diagnosed with autism last year, and a lot of you asked me how I'm coping with it. What do I do with like dealing with it with him, therapies and all that stuff. And let me just tell you, I'm still coping with it. It's still something that I know little to nothing about. Being thrust into this autism world is scary and very overwhelming. I have to make all of these decisions and do what's right for my son, but then I often have to battle with health insurance and not being covered for things and dealing with therapies and getting him placed in the right school, and overall him, it's very hard. There are some days when I look at his diagnosis and I'm just overwhelmed to the extreme with it. It just breaks my heart, honestly. I don't want to get too emotional or too into this because I still really like keeping my life personal. I'm okay with you guys knowing that he has autism, but I don't want to share with you all the ins and outs because I feel like that's really personal to him and I need to respect his privacy. Right now he's growing, he's thriving. He is so much more, like, he's learned so much in this past year. If you would have told me last year at this time that he would be saying over 100 words and talking in sentences and like requesting things, I would have laughed in your face. I would have thought that would never have been possible, but it is. So for me, some days autism feels like I'm just lost in a maze of just twists and turns and I can't get out of it. Some days I feel like there are lights at the end of the tunnel and I can see things progressing and I can see the right developments being made for him, being put in the right therapies, insurance and covering that, people understanding. It's overwhelming is the one word, but it's what God has placed in my life, so I'm going to do the best I can with it. If you have anybody in your life on the spectrum, you'll understand how I feel. It's very scary, but overall, Noah's an amazing child inside and out, and I love him to pieces, and my eyes are getting glassy, so I'm gonna move on. My makeup is always on point. Well, thank you, because I feel like it's never on point. Do I have any new makeup discoveries in 2018 that became favorites? And yes, I do. New favorite that I'm obsessed with is a palette, and it's the, you probably can't even see this, it's like real peach colored. It's the Revolution, or Makeup Revolution, I should say, the Emily Edit, the Once palette. Emily is a beauty YouTuber. She's the YouTuber of Emily Noel 83, and I usually do not buy beauty YouTube collabs. I'm just not into that. Like, I like makeup, but I'm not like invested in it. But when I heard she was doing this collab with Makeup Revolution, I was like, I can buy that because it's gonna be affordable and it's got a lot of things in it. So this was only like 25 bucks, which for a palette this big is an amazing deal. 20 eyeshadows for like 25 bucks. It's amazing. I say this is my new favorite because I love that it's got neutrals in here as well as colors. I feel like 2018 I really branched out with eyeshadow wise. I used to just only do brown like I'm doing today, just kind of gold, brown, and go with it. But this past year I've used a lot of like kind of, I don't know what the word of that is, like purples. I've used a lot of greens. I've used a lot of reds undertones. So I love this palette, would highly recommend it. Great quality for an affordable price, aka I love it. So this year I learned about baking, which baking means like putting like, I don't know, loose powder like under your eyes, mostly on my chin for me because my chin's horrible. I've been using the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Finishing Powder, and what I'll do is I put it on after my concealer, so I'll use my beauty blender, put the beauty blender straight into the finishing powder and leave it on there while I like do my hair, and it just makes my skin feel smoother and it has a nice finish. So I love this. Again, pretty affordable. It's like 5 bucks. I've had this for like 4 months and I still got a good amount in there. If you don't know already, I like affordable things. If I had to pick between Chiclet and Y Contemporary, which one would I pick and why? Oh, you ask a very hard question because those are my favorite genres. I'm gonna say Chiclet because I love my Y Contemporary, but I feel like I would, I don't want to say fit in. I feel like I would bond or get more from a Chiclet book because they're more in my age range. So when I read about the problems that are faced in the Chiclet books, I feel like those are much more relevant to my life. That's what I was looking for, was relevant, more so than the Y Contemporary books. So right now I picked Chiclet just because it's more relevant to my life. Do you think that maybe because you're grown out of YA fantasy, you might be ready for adult fantasy, high fantasy? Your taste might be maturing for more complex fantasy. That's a great question. So last year I said that I was kind of falling out of love with YA fantasy. It wasn't sparking my interest anymore. Like, I read 20, I was only maybe impressed by 10. Maybe that means I'm ready for adult fantasy like Brandon Sanderson. Anybody else? I don't know. I think I would love that, but I'm scared to even start with adult fantasy. So if you have any recommendations for adult fantasies for beginners, please leave them in the comments. Like, your girl needs help. Like, I like YA fantasy still, but I think I want to tread into the adult fantasy genre. So please let me know. What's your favorite recipe to cook for a family dinner? If it's like a family dinner, like not just my family, but like a big family, the Pioneer Woman's lasagna recipe, it's freaking huge. It can feed an army and everybody loves it. So it's super easy to cook too. Melanie asked, favorite Gilmore Girls episode and favorite Buffy episode? Well, Melanie, you ask a really hard freaking question because that's, those are like my 2 favorite shows. I don't know if I can answer favorite episode. I can tell you my favorite seasons. My favorite seasons of Buffy, hands down, seasons 3 and season 5. I love those seasons. I also have a really weakness for the episode Tabula Rasa. I think that was in season 6. That might be my favorite all-time episode of Buffy. And Hush. Hush is so good. Oh my gosh, I love Hush. But I just love the entirety of season 3 and season 5 too, though. It's hard. Like, it's really hard. Gilmore Girls, that's even harder. I love Gilmore Girls. It's my favorite show of all time. My favorite seasons of Gilmore Girls are, I want to say 2 and 4. I think so. I love seasons 2 and 4. My favorite episode of Gilmore Girls, I still don't know yet. I still don't know. But I think it might be a deep fried Korean Thanksgiving. Every time I think of Gilmore Girls, I think of that episode. I think very vividly of that whole episode. That doesn't happen to me a lot. But do you guys want a top 10 Gilmore Girls episodes? Because I'm working on it and it's hard and I'm having a really hard time with it. But if you want it, I will work harder on it. So let me know if you want a top 10 Gilmore Girls episode. What is something that you think is a key part of who you are but that your subscribers may not know about? I want to say my religion's a really big part of who I am. I don't project that much on my channel because I feel like it's a very personal thing. Like, I will talk openly to anybody about it, but you know, I don't want to shove it in anybody's faces. So I strive each day, particularly this year. I've been really pushing myself to get closer to God and be a better mom and be a better wife and daughter and friend and just better person in general. And I really feel like that's a really big part of my life. Like, churches, just being a follower of God is, but I don't project that a lot because I think that's a very sensitive subject to a lot of people, and I understand that, so I don't want to project it in anybody's faces constantly, but that's your answer, I suppose. Somebody says, count all the Harry Potter books you have, how many there are, hardback, paperbacks, illustrated screenplays, coffee table books, etc. Let's do this. So I can tell you right now, without a doubt, I have 7 in my attic. That's the 7 original books I have already. So we'll count that. There's 7. There's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 28 books. That's not a lot at all. I mean, what kind of jobs did you have prior to BookTube and photography? Chick-fil-A. Your girl worked at Chick-fil-A for like 9 years. When I say I worked at Chick-fil-A, I worked every position at Chick-fil-A. I used to be a really high up manager at Chick-fil-A. Like, I started in the kitchen breading chicken for boards. I mean, if you work at Chick-fil-A, you know the terminology. Then I went to like where you actually make the food. Then I went up front to be cashier. Then I went to drive-through. Then I went to like, I know every ins and out. Like, I can make probably coleslaw in my sleep with Chick-fil-A, and it's been years since I've worked there, but I worked there a good long time. And I think that's all the questions I'm gonna ask, because that's all I have time for. Hopefully I answered enough. If you guys have more questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments for me to answer at another time. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and learned more about me and who I am, and also bookish things as well. And I think that's it. Sorry if it was long. That's probably really long. I apologize, but I hope that's okay. I'll see you guys in my next video.